Samson Mao of Blockstream and Infinite Fleet. Samson, welcome back.
Thank you, Max. Great to be back.
Right, here we are in San Salvador, El Salvador, where there's a peaceful revolution going on with Bitcoin being made legal tender and, of course, the Bitcoin bond. You were instrumental, if not the chief architect, on these bonds, working with President Bukele. It's shaken the world of finance. It's a revolutionary new concept that this startup nation of El Salvador is really basing a whole new economy on. Tell us about it.
The Bitcoin bonds are a $1 billion bond. The first one is called the volcano bond, and it will go half into buying Bitcoin and half into building energy infrastructure and mining equipment. So this will be a 10-year bond with a 6.5% coupon, and at the end you get your principal back. But the interesting thing about this bond is the Bitcoin component will contribute to a special kicker. So for the first 5 years, you get 6.5%. But in the final 5 years, you get 6.5% plus the special Bitcoin dividend, which, depending on Bitcoin price, could make the total coupon size 90%, 120%. Your best guess is my best guess, but it's going to be good.
Right. So for institutions who are looking for exposure to Bitcoin, this is a great way to do it because you're being paid 6.5% essentially to wait for the Bitcoin move. And a lot of people, they don't like the volatility, but here you're getting the 6.5% coupon and you don't have to really worry about the volatility. As I understand it, the Bitcoin's basically locked up for 5 years and
Yes.
then they start to pay out. Now, you told me on another podcast that the volcano bond, in your view, is probably the most significant advance in Bitcoin since Bitcoin.
I think so, because it is very innovative on a number of levels. So as we know, institutional investors are starved for yield. They're trying their best to get yield. They're trying to access Bitcoin, but they don't necessarily have the means to get into Bitcoin. This bond fixes that. So they can buy the bond, they can have that Bitcoin upside, and it fits with their mandates, their charters, which would otherwise stick them into buying something like a mining stock or something less efficient than the volcano bonds. So I think it's going to be a big game changer. The other thing is these bonds are going to be traded 24/7, 365 because it is a crypto asset. It is a token issued on the Liquid network, which is a federated Bitcoin sidechain. It will be traded on exchanges like Bitfinex and others. So you're going to have 24/7 trading and a massive pool of liquidity, which is not that common with bonds.
Right. And, we're talking big numbers. We're talking about the bond market and international investors. Let's talk about the Salvadoran who is working a job and they've just been told that Bitcoin's been made legal tender and it's something very new to them. So let's talk about the average Salvadoran. How does Bitcoin going to impact their lives?
Well, the biggest thing is Salvadorans now will get the hardest money known to mankind, which is Bitcoin. They can earn Bitcoin. They can easily change their money into Bitcoin using the Chivo wallet. And they have this access to the future financial system today, which is not that common. So most countries are not looking at Bitcoin. They're not making Bitcoin legal tender. They're just printing more money. But here you have El Salvador riding the wave of the future, right? They're riding that wave of the future right to prosperity because ordinary Salvadorans will be able to accumulate Bitcoin and stack sats easily. And they could potentially access the bond as well. The interesting thing about the volcano bond and the Bitcoin bonds is we want it to be accessible to ordinary people. Usually when you buy a bond, they're $1,000, hundreds of thousands of dollars, or millions of dollars if you look at the current minimum sizes of the current bonds out there. And that's not something a normal person can get. But because we're using Liquid, because it is a token, we can go down to $100 minimum size. So a normal person, perhaps it's a Salvadoran living abroad, maybe they're in Canada and they want to help their country. They can buy a piece of this bond and contribute to the economic prosperity of their nation.
Let's talk about Bitcoin City for a second. So Bitcoin City is, on the surface anyway, an enormously ambitious project. I was there at the event. You were on stage with President Bukele. He unveiled Bitcoin City. He unveiled the volcano bonds. You were the architect of those bonds. And tell us more about Bitcoin City.
So Bitcoin City, I think, is akin to a special economic region. It's a place where you can go set up your company, live there, and have zero tax on almost everything, just VAT tax. So no corporate tax, no payroll tax, no income tax, no capital gain tax. It's almost like paradise for people, right? And you pair that with the Bitcoin law, and I think you just have the perfect storm, right? If you set up a special economic region like that somewhere else in the world, but it's still based in that legacy financial system, the fiat economy, I don't think it would reach the level of success that Bitcoin City in El Salvador will, because you have that Bitcoin component. If you look at Hong Kong, right, it's a major economic center. They have very favorable taxation. It's very open and free. But if you set up a company in Hong Kong now, can you get a bank account? Maybe you can't, right? It's because money has become that tool for surveillance. And the banks, they have to comply, right? They don't want to. It's a massive cost, like running an exchange in another life. I know when you have more and more compliance, that increases your business operational cost, right? So for Hong Kong, like you can't get a bank account. So even if you have those favorable conditions, it doesn't matter almost. But here in El Salvador with Bitcoin City, you've got both. You have those favorable conditions for business, and you have the Bitcoin law, which means you can have money that is just simply money.
Right. That's a key part of the story that I think appeals to anybody from a big corporation down to the pupusa salesperson on the street, is that the transactions are without any censorship, and there's nobody that can stop these transactions. And the money that you make is not going to be inflated away out of existence.
Exactly.
And that creates in El Zonte, which is really the beginning of the Bitcoin revolution here in El Salvador at Bitcoin Beach. Immediately, you heard the phrase circular economy. Okay, what is that?
Actually, I popularized that.
Okay, tell us about it then.
I was giving talks like maybe in 2016. That was when the Lightning Network was starting to come into being, right? So the Lightning Network is a layer 2 of Bitcoin. So Liquid is one layer 2. Then you have Lightning. But the key for Lightning is it enables microtransactions. Buying coffee, buying pupusas, and your transactions are free and instantaneous. So you can have a circular economy. When you're transacting on the Bitcoin main chain, you have to pay fees to the miners. Sometimes the fees are low, sometimes they're high. It changes based on demand. But with the Lightning Network, you can have the circular economy where you can get paid and spend it all in one go. So it's circular because you're earning and spending Bitcoin. You don't need to go back out. You don't need to get your paycheck in dollars, buy Bitcoin, spend the Bitcoin, replenish your Bitcoin holdings. You can earn Bitcoin and spend Bitcoin without exiting and going back to that fiat legacy system. And I think the key here is that you remove friction. You let Bitcoin become a currency. So anyone can earn Bitcoin, receive Bitcoin, spend Bitcoin, and there's zero friction.